With everything that's happening right now, this story has slipped quietly under the radar. In fact, only 3 sources reported on this in the last 24 hours. But in terms of the debate over mass migration, this is one of the most stunning concessions you've heard in recent times. One of the most influential men in world politics over the course of the last half a century, admitting that multiculturalism and mass migration has utterly failed. Listen carefully, because the importance of what he said cannot be overstated.
It was a grave mistake to let in so many people of totally different cultural and religious and concepts, because it creates a pressure group inside each country that does that.
Again, that's Henry Kissinger, who, whatever you think of him, can't be denied that he's a titan of global politics. Admitting, in the words of this Politico headline, that Germany let in too many foreigners, and that the events of the past week have basically proven that no, diversity isn't our strength, it's a fundamental weakness. What prompted Kissinger to come to this conclusion? Scenes of Arabs on the streets of Berlin celebrating the Hamas terrorist attacks, scenes that he called painful. They were even handing out snacks to passers-by to mark the supposedly joyous occasion. It really was a carnival atmosphere. AFD posted footage of the outrage, warning that the police have now given up enforcing the law in some areas and that a violent uprising is now inevitable. And is it any wonder, fresh off a stellar success in the state elections, that they're now the second biggest party in Germany. The anti-mass migration party is now polling at 22.5%, less than 5 points behind the Christian Democrats. Remember after Germany took in over 1 million migrants and Merkel said, "We can do this"? Yeah, seems the German people living amongst the consequences of that policy have come to a very different conclusion. And we've seen before, most notably after the Notre Dame fire, how the media has desperately tried to cover up similar scenes of celebration amongst diverse communities. When live streams on Arabic channels of the burning cathedral betrayed sentiments of wild jubilation. A reality subsequently buried as a conspiracy theory by the legacy media. Now in the aftermath of the Hamas attack, such scenes have become ubiquitous across the streets of European cities. The truth can no longer be obscured. We've imported vast numbers of people who hate us, who see us as colonizers, and who will literally erupt in brazen euphoria in response to mass casualty terror attacks against innocent civilians. We're seeing reports of anti-Israel protesters shouting "Gas the Jews" outside the Sydney Opera House. 37 news outlets have covered this story, but the vast majority of them are right-wing publications, leaving the left in the dark about these kind of events. The Israel-Palestine conflict is one of the most highly politicised issues in modern history, and Ground News is the only platform I trust to give me the full story. In fact, they have a complete timeline of recent events broken down by political bias, so you can see exactly what's being covered by either side. If you compare the left and right, it paints a completely different picture of what's going on. These are the times that I'm genuinely relieved that something like Ground News exists, to immediately expose how politics impacts the way the news is reported. Check it out at ground.news/PJW. It's about $5 a month for unlimited access if you subscribe via my link, or try their pro plan for just $1. To me, it's a no-brainer if you actually care about staying informed and sorting through the BS. Now back to the video. Now, despite this form of vacuous virtue signalling becoming a banal staple of post-cataclysmic response, the Israeli flag won't be projected onto Wembley Stadium, because, according to the BBC, it might cause a backlash from some communities. Perhaps they feared a repeat of what just happened in Sheffield. Having already seen over the weekend what happened on the streets of London. Perhaps they want to avoid what happened in Vienna last night. What does it say about how successful the integration of these migrants and communities has been? That they're too frightened to project some colours onto a building to honour innocent people brutally slaughtered at a music festival, families killed in their own homes, in case our diverse friends get offended and lash out in violence. England footballers still to this day are taking a knee to BLM and will continue to do so even after several BLM chapters expressed explicit support for Hamas terrorists. How do we in the West respond to Islamic terrorists killing our citizens and children in comparison to how Israel responds?
If tens of thousands of people were slaughtered in Britain by a group of terrorists, I doubt that there would be a lot of British citizens who are sitting around worrying about proportionality or worrying about the geopolitical consequences of protecting their own citizenry.
You're kidding, right? After an Islamic terrorist blew up kids at an Ariana Grande pop concert, one who we imported into the country as a refugee, in case you forgot, a pro-Palestine activist to boot, what was our response? There was no righteous response. We were told to hold hands, paint pictures of bees and sing "Don't Look Back in Anger." Israel's response is to take a territory in which over 2 million people live in close proximity and carpet bomb it into oblivion. Something I vehemently oppose, by the way. But compare that to our response, which was to bury our heads in the sand, clutch our pearls, and act concerned about Islamophobic comments on social media. When ISIS terrorists invaded Paris and slaughtered hundreds, including at the Bataclan concert venue, having exploited the refugee wave to get into the country in the first place, anyone who even dared make the connection to open borders was shouted down as a dangerous bigot. Why is Israel's massively, in their own words, disproportionate response to Islamic terrorism designed, again in their own words, around the goal of maximum damage, not maximum accuracy, legitimised, supported, morally justified by every tentacle of the Western establishment, endorsed by every single mainstream politician, backed by the might of the US military? Yet when Western countries are the target of Islamic terrorism, accompanied by the relentless demographic overhaul of our countries facilitated by mass migration, any other response besides glib, meaningless demands to be nice and celebrate diversity as our strength, any call to actually do something about it, is routinely treated as a bigger danger than the problem itself. Get early access to videos, exclusive live streams, and personally DM me. You've seen how much I get demonetized all the time. Well, this is how you support me. By subscribing at pauljosephwatson.locals.com. Please click the link in the description.